Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 45. First conflict with the new Nachalstva. The barges came up. The water in the river had already receded quite a bit. The bank was steep, slippery from the remaining mud. Once one descended the bank, a space of about 4 meters remained between the barge and the shore. Over this space were thrown 2 planks, slippery with mud from passing feet. With rather heavy 40-kilogram bundles of tobacco, we were slipping and rocking like acrobats, lugging the bundles onto the barges. The workers, most of them women, were subsisting practically only on that bread ration, which we were able to buy in a store 2 kilometers away. All of us, except the 4 orphans, were arrivals from somewhere else and had nothing of our own yet. So then the food was poor and the work quite strenuous. We would become very tired. We would often stop to rest. For this, the director would curse us often. He constantly shouted, "Skore, bistra!" Hurry, faster. He was from Prem and spoke with a dialect instead of saying "Skoreje, bistreje." We found this very amusing and would shout "Skore, bistra" at every opportunity. The director was right. If we rested too long, the barges would overstay their prescribed time. The station would have to pay a fine. The director was responsible, although the money would not be paid from his pocket, but he would have enough problems. The supplemental grain to fortify us had already been ground, but the director was in no hurry to distribute it to us. We workers decided to remind the director of what he had promised us. I was a scribe, so everyone commissioned me to write a statement to the director that we should be given some of the promised flour. I wrote it, but we all signed, about 20 people. What a storm arose! The director immediately called a meeting with the bookkeeper. The director and then his bookie laced into us with such accusations that only prison or something worse could be our fate. There are agitators who instigate workers to demand that to which they are not entitled. There are those who sniff out everything, who know everything. I sat with an impassive face and waited for the meeting to end so that we could go and rest. But I noticed that the eyes of the red-haired favorite and the director were flashing at me. Others began to glance in my direction. I pretended not to notice. I did not react. Then the director, without any allusions, addressed me directly. "What, Zukauskaya is sitting as if nothing happened, while she is the one who instigated the workers to write a collective statement. Do you know what that smells of? You were entrusted with the fanning of grain, and you immediately sniffed out which was the good grain. Right away you instigate the workers. The workers receive what is due to them, that is the government ration, and what is in which sack is neither your business nor that of any of you others. The remainder was given not to you, but to feed the horse." The director's favorites were glancing triumphantly and angrily at me. My children and my husband were visibly worried. I looked at them calmly. I had never been able to remain silent in the face of injustice, as if I were a complacent sheep, and so I became fired up this time again. Having glanced at Stasukas, who was looking at me imploringly and with disquietude, I regained my balance and stated, "You have been reading off my sins at length, but I have not grasped that this concerns me." The director began to shout, "And now you have grasped it, so what do you have to say?" "Please be patient," I answered. "I shall tell you. When you brought that bad grain, it was stated that in loading the barges, the workers would receive flour with their rations." "Who said so?" The director's angry voice. "Your wife, Tatiana Ivanovna. But if you have changed your mind, then how are we guilty? We were all waiting for that bonus. I instigated no one. The initiators were other people. I wrote the statement at the request of others. I did not offer it to anyone to sign. I never thought that in the Soviet Union it is considered a crime to ask for that which has already been promised. After all, one has to wait for 3 years for that which has been promised, states a Russian proverb. And you will not get it. Perhaps, as far as the sacks are concerned, I did not check them. I did not know that they contained good flour. I only said that they were familiar to me since they were made of Lithuanian tablecloths. The workers, who were my supporters and the director's favorites, argued on for quite a while. Having said this, I left for the barracks. Of course, we never received the promised bonus. We cooked a soup of pure nettles, while the director's wife and his 2 favorites baked sanushkas, patties with potato filling. The horse never even got a whiff of that flour because it was summer and he was grazing in the tall grass. The half-starved workers cursed the superiors and their favorites with such words as slime, snakes, Herods, and even stronger words, but they were no less hungry from that, and those addressed with these epithets did not hear the compliments. Once the tobacco barges had been loaded, we often went to help at the Zakocerno station. There we would get an additional 300 grams of bread and 24 kopecks for a loaded ton. The payment was 90 kopecks a ton for the regular workers. We only helped out for extra money. In order to earn those 24 kopecks, it was necessary to carry 20 bags from the warehouse, usually on a slippery river bank. When I asked one time why the payment was so meager, I was told that the norms had been set for mechanized loading. They were also valid here, although we had no mechanization. Nevertheless, we were still content because we received additional bread and the work was paid for, though poorly, not like on the collective farm where we had to work almost 24 hours for nothing. Notes. Vot Zukauskaya means here Zukauskiene. Sanushka are patties with a potato filling. Zakocerno is a grain processing station, a facility for storing and processing grain in certain rural locations in Soviet Russia.